Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody. Just doing a sound check for the guys that have decided to join us early. So welcome so long, and we look forward to this webinar with you this morning. All right, good morning, everybody. It's now 10 o'clock. So we'll just give it an extra minute or so for the guys that are still connecting. I see the attendees are climbing slowly but surely, and we've got a nice attendance this morning. So just to afford everybody the opportunity of joining us this morning, we'll just give it another minute or so. In the meantime, make yourselves comfortable. It'll be quite an enjoyable and interactive session for today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we seem to have quite a bit of the attendees in so far. So I think what we can do is, in preparation for today, this is the first time that I'll be using GoToWebinar as our webinar platform. So we are still finding our feet and adjusting as need be. So for those of you that have used GoToWebinar, you might be aware of it, but to make the video streaming quality that we'll be doing with you guys a little bit better, we have uploaded it to the GoToWebinar platform. And once we play the video, it will pop up as a separate screen. So for you guys to make the viewing a bit better, what you can do is just undock your webcam, and then what you will see during this presentation is that the video will then actually take up the full time. I will be starting my webcam so that you guys can see that it is me and it's not a recorded session. So hopefully you guys will be able to see me soon. All right, welcome everybody to a nice warm sunny morning here in South Africa. And I say South Africa because we've got quite a couple of attendees from right across the globe. So to all our colleagues, both Festo and customers abroad, welcome and thank you for joining us this morning. All right, guys, so I think time-wise, let's kick it off. Let's not take up too much time. So this morning, if you take a look outside and we see the roads are nice and quiet, and that's not just because of the COVID-19 lockdown. I believe it's also because so many of you have decided to stay home today purely to attend my webinar. So from that side, I want to say thank you very much, and not just attending the webinar, but keeping the roads also a lot quieter. So from my side, thank you for attending, and hopefully you enjoy the session. I'll be kicking it off with a small, short intro video, and after that, we'll kick off the presentation. Trust me that my screen now changes, and there we go. Great stuff. I hope you guys got the gist of what we'll be looking at today, referred to as Simplified Motion Series. Now, before we continue with Simplified Motion Series, I'd like to kick off with a poll where I'm asking you guys if you'll be able to just answer this poll. Is, do you have problematic air at your workplace? So if you've got water in the lines, if you've perhaps got inconsistent cylinders running because of fluctuating air pressures, if you don't mind just answering on the poll quickly, just a simple yes or no. And then as soon as we're done there, we'll be able to continue with the presentation. So my colleague Cassandra is in the background. She's checking your poll. And while we're on that, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to unmute your mic and ask away. Alternatively, you can also put it in the chat, and Cassandra will then be taking note of all the questions in the chat, and we will answer the chat questions at the end in a short Q&A session. So Cassandra, how are we doing with the chat? If we can close that, so then we can continue with the presentation.
All right. Poll closing.
Great. So guys, I believe you can see my screen again. And as you know, electric automation at Festo, we've got quite a wide range of products in our portfolio. So where does Simplified Motion Series come into play? So as you'll see with Simplified Motion Series, it really comes in at the bottom end.
Excuse me, Mark, it's just in presenter mode.
Do apologize, I don't know why it's done that now. Thank you, Kirsha. As you see, the GoToWebinar is still a bit new to us, and if you click a bit on the wrong place, you tend to see wrong things. All right, guys, so I believe we can now see the full screen again. So 100%. All right, so as you can see in the bottom left-hand side, Simplified Motion Series is where we start, and it is the lower end of the cost versus complexity chain. And as you can see, we also progress up from single axis, be it extra low voltage servo, full servo axes, all the way up to the top where you have the multi-axis systems alongside motion controllers and of course our vision systems. But today we'll be focusing on Simplified Motion Series and what it brings. So where does Simplified Motion Series fit in? We believe it actually is the bridge between standard pneumatics and mechanical axes. So with that, let's have a quick squiz at how we compete or compare the Simplified Motion Series to the pneumatics. So as you'll see in the bottom left-hand side is our Simplified Motion Series. And hopefully you'll notice that it is a mechanical axis, much alike or similar to that of a pneumatic cylinder, integrated with a stepper controller, and of course with a decentralized, already attached stepper controller. So in today's day and age, to get motion or actuation, we need to look at how does simplified motion or even pneumatics start in terms of actuation. So we both need some form of supply, be it electrical supply for the Simplified Motion Series being 24 volt, or if you compare pneumatics, you would of course require 6-bar pneumatic pressure. How do you then get movement? So movement is quite simple. You attach your inputs directly to the PLC, and of course you will then be able to move your Simplified Motion Series either forward or backwards, so extending or retracting. How would we do that with a pneumatic cylinder? Quite simple. We add in a valve, and for today's exercise we're going to be using a 5-3-way center closed. And the reason we're using a 5-3 center closed is so that we can try and stop a pneumatic cylinder halfway. So we've got our 5-3 valve. Now we need to connect up to our cylinder, or from the PLC, exactly the same two outputs to the valve to switch to go positive or negative. So you guys will see that the outputs from the PLC are the exact same between the pneumatic and the electric option. So from the valve, we of course have to pipe up to our cylinder, and we'll now be able to have motion. So what do we need to do with that motion? We need to be able to control the speed. So for those of you that have worked with the pneumatic systems, how do we control the speed? Quite simple. We just add in a couple of flow controls, and we can now adjust the speed by regulating the exhaust pressure on those cylinders. So a question might come up and say, how do we then control the speed on a Simplified Motion Series? Quite simple. With the HMI on board, you'll see that we've got two speed settings, one for speed out and one for speed in. And that's simple just to mean that the extracting speed or the retracting speed. Okay, so what else can we set on a pneumatic cylinder? Of course, we can set the force. And how would we set the force? By adding in a pressure regulator. Sorry about that, having some government gin, throat getting a bit dry this morning. All right, so by adjusting the force to the valves and of course to the pneumatic cylinder, we can control the actual force that the cylinder is applying. So once again, on Simplified Motion Series, we can adjust the force by adjusting the force on the actual HMI. Then what else do we need? We need to be able to know or interlock whether or not the cylinder is retracted or extended. So by adding reed switches or limit switches onto your pneumatic cylinder, the PLC will be able to understand or know where the cylinder is. So exactly the same way, we would be able to pick up whether your Simplified Motion Series cylinder is extended or retracted, is because of the encoder that's included into the stepper motor, we know where the actual position is. So we negate the need for additional sensors. So that's two things that it'll actually assist in the customer. One, it reduces the purchase cost because it doesn't have to buy external sensors. And of course, you get rid of those niggly fingers, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, where machine operators move sensors so that the machine can stop operating. So as you see that the sensors are wired directly into the PLC and is included in the same cable. So for those of you that might have noticed, there's only two cables that get wired to the Simplified Motion Series, one being your source or your 24-volt supply, and of course the other plug get wired with regards to your signals as well as your IO link. So IO link has its benefits, and I'll touch directly on the IO link a little bit later in this presentation so that we can see exactly where the benefits of the IO link system is. So with that, let's have a look at the complete product portfolio in the Simplified Motion Series. So you'll notice starting on the left-hand side, we have our belt drives. Let me just put on my laser pointer there. So we start on our economy belt drives, enclosed belt drives, enclosed ball screws, cantilever systems, of course, our cylinder style, and of course the rotary. So all of these units are available except for the cylinder style units. So just keep a lookout. These will be available mid-May, and I'm sure there's a lot of guys that are keen on getting their hands on these systems. So how do we control this? So digitally, it's controlled via two inputs. And of course, we get the position feedback via the signals from the Simplified Motion Series. Further than that, there's no configuration or tuning needed. So for those of you, Cassandra will be popping up a poll just to find out, do you have the technical or qualified maintenance technicians on site, or do you make use of external contractors? So guys, if you can just give us a yes, no there, do you have qualified maintenance technicians on site? And as soon as we're done with that, I'll answer as to why that's important with the Simplified Motion Series. So I can't see where we're at with those. So I believe the numbers are getting there. And once we've reached the poll, Cassandra will be closing that.
We have 30% voted.
So guys, the faster we vote, it does seem that once you click it, it does take about a second or so to acknowledge your vote. So just be patient with it. It will be counted. So the reason that I ask why have you got qualified maintenance technicians is we find OEMs or end users more and more nowadays are relying on technical expertise of service providers. And with the Simplified Motion Series, you negate needing high levels of technical expertise. All the settings are done on the HMI, and I'll be showing you a hands-on tutorial on how to actually set these units up. Of course, there's no tuning required because each of the motors come already assembled on the axis, and it comes with its own set of parameters. So the motor itself cannot be purchased as a separate unit. It can, however, be bought as a spare part. So Cassandra, if you can close the poll there for us, if you don't mind.
Poll closing.
Thank you. 100%. All right, so as I was saying, the configuration of the tuning is already included. So we'll see in the motion profile later that it's got a fixed acceleration and deceleration curve, and of course the parameters that you can set are basics, for instance, speed, position, etc. But we'll get through to that. The idea is that you need no high-level technical expertise to set these up. So what other benefit do we have in the Simplified Motion Series? With it being a decentralized system, you need no control space. And of course, you also have a single part number when ordering this. So imagine making life a lot simpler. If you looked back earlier, there was a valve and flow controls and a cylinder and pipe and. So your store or your buyer needs to, of course, remember all of those. With the Simplified Motion Series, one part number, axis, motor, and controller in one. Then, how do we size or how do we make a selection? We've got an online sizing tool, a very, very interactive or intuitive online sizing tool, which we'll have a look at the end of this presentation. So whilst I'm saying that, if there's somebody out there that's got an application that they're thinking of to perhaps use as a demonstration at the end, please think of an application during the presentation, and I'll ask for some questions or some suggestions when we look at doing the sizing. So as you can see, it's electric motion, as simple as it gets. But let's compare again between electric axis and pneumatic axis. What is needed and what are the benefits that we get? So of course, electrical axis, because of the closed loop control, we get repeatability, we get accuracy of about 0.1 millimeters, where with a pneumatic cylinder, your speed as well as your force and pressures all vary because of temperature and loading, as well as load on the compressor system. So if you want accuracy and repeatability, electric axis is the way to go. We also look at installation. You see on the Simplified Motion Series, you only need one component, where on the pneumatic, you need 7 odd components. So as I mentioned, from your store having to order, as well as just keeping critical spares in stock, you can use one system. Imagine OEM here has 3 of the same cylinders, one being 100 millimeters, 125, and let's say 155 millimeter. He's got a custom cylinder. He now has to keep 3 cylinders in stock. With the Simplified Motion Series, he only has 1 in stock, and because he can adjust the stroke, he then reduces the stock requirement. Of course, we also look at the smoothness of motion. You'll see in the demonstration how slow we can operate the Simplified Motion Series. And for those of you that have worked with pneumatic cylinders, we all know that once you set a pneumatic cylinder to a very slow speed, we get what we refer to as stick slip, where you start getting a jerk motion. And of course, that's not good for a cylinder. As well as being able to control loads at high speeds, you want something that controls it, and that's where Simplified Motion Series comes in. Then, as we said, with the stroke adjustment, because of the teachable end position, you have the flexibility as an OEM. How many times have you heard where a customer has changed a couple of parameters and you now need to change fixed stops or fixed blocks, add in cushioning, dampers, etc., where with the Simplified Motion Series, you've got the flexibility. We often hear a lot of the customers out there ask what it is in terms of the running cost, which is cheaper or more cost effective to run, electrics or pneumatics, and each application is based on its own merit. However, if you look in general, the highly efficient electric actuation, there's no losses in terms of leaks or maintenance on a compressor or maintenance in the air preparation unit. So cost of operation is, of course, therefore a lot more cost effective to run. Another important point to take into account is the safety. If you look at safety nowadays, once you hit emergency stop, with an electric axis, we stop, we immediately disable, there's no more force being applied. With a pneumatic system, unless you've got quite an expensive dump valve system in, there's always residual pressure on the pneumatic cylinder. So therefore, the potential for injury or potential for injury still remains. But enough about comparing. Let's have a look at where these actually fit in terms of applications. So we look at several applications where the Simplified Motion Series will really be beneficial. So for you guys in the conveyor industry, we look at perhaps aligning, feeding, or perhaps ejecting or sorting. But I've got a better way of showing that to you guys. So let's imagine a sorting process where we've got product coming down the line. And of course, there are traditional pneumatic systems that way. And one of the issues or one of the things that we've picked up from the industry is that with the inconsistencies of the pneumatic systems, they don't So guys, if you can just let me know if you can see the screen in terms of sorting. It's an interactive video that's playing. All right, so we also look at positioning, where positioning is perhaps one of the most commonly used applications. So I just need to check. Kershaw, are you guys seeing what I'm seeing there, or are you still on the topics page?
Yes, I can. I can see the video.
Okay, 100% just checking. Sorry for my update on my side. All right, so positioning, we have an application for where a customer has perhaps 2 or 3 SKUs or different products that he's running, and he needs to align it under either a labeler or a printer or perhaps a camera scanner. And with the flexibility of the electric axis, you can of course adjust the position by means of just changing the end position. You can align each product differently. We also look at perhaps a lifting application where customers have stacking applications or lift and transfer, and that of course changes with each product. So needing to perhaps change your stroke for flexibility, that's where the flexibility of the electrical axis really comes to play. Then one of the nice interesting topics I want to show is the simple pressing application. So when we refer to a simple press application, what does it really mean? It means that the product can actually move towards, or the axis can actually move towards the product at a high speed just before it reaches the product, slow down, and then go into what we refer to as a force mode. And that force mode is done at a slow speed, but of course to a force set point. And once your axis reaches the force set point, it will stop and give you a corresponding output to say, I've now reached my position and force. So where does Simplified Motion Series really come into play with regards to the standard factory that we'll find out there? So as you know, Fairstay has a wide range of electric automotion components, from HMIs to servo drives, remote I/O. We've got it all, from cameras to works. So Simplified Motion Series, by adding it onto IO-Link, can be implemented anywhere in your factory. So if you'll see that some of the applications that we have represented here, for instance, on turntables, small turntables, we've got pushers that's moving it. We even have stoppers on a conveyor, electrical stoppers, which negate you having to run separate pneumatic piping for that. You can also, of course, lift your camera depending on the application or the product running through. You can lift and lower your cameras. So you'll see that Simplified Motion Series is an easy unit to use everywhere in the factory. And of course, looking at simplifying things, how do we simplify the installation? So if we had to look at a IO-Link type of installation, you can now see we can have a lot more advanced installations and advanced controls. So in this picture, you'll see that we're using our remote I/O, the CPX API, which there will be another webinar on that. So please keep a lookout for that. Yeah, you'll see that we've got 12 of our Simplified Motion Series axes connected to a IO-Link network. What does that mean for you as a customer? It means by running one single cable back towards the PLC or the control room, you can connect, of course, up to 12, if not more, of these Simplified Motion Series. That also gives you now a lot more information, and that's where I'm going to be touching your base on with the IO-Link in terms of why IO-Link over digital control. But to take us a little bit further, let's go and have a look at those advanced controls. What are they really? All right, so in the beginning, we showed you exactly what the cylinders can do in terms of movement. But here we've got a graphic representation of how these systems work. So Simplified Motion Series is based on having two positions. It's got a fixed in position or its home position, as well as its reference position or its start press position. I will, in a hands-on tutorial, show you exactly how to set everything up. So stay tuned, because I believe once you see how simple it is, you won't look at electrical axis the same again. Then for simple pressing, you have the same parameters where you can set your stroke, you can set the speed at which it gets to that position, and then of course the force where you can set that. So on that, I'm going to now show you guys a hands-on video on how to start setting this up. So from here, I'm going to launch a video. So hopefully you've undocked your cameras. So let's have a look at how this is done. All right, so I believe you'll agree with me that that was quite easy to set up. So just to refer back to what the home position is, if you look at a pneumatic cylinder, the state it would be in once you apply air would be its home position. So if you apply air and the cylinder is retracted or extended, that would be its home position. So after you've set the home position, now is where we can start playing with things like stroke. So I'm going to show you guys exactly how to set up stroke. Nice and easy, hey guys? So now we've had a look at the home position, we've set the home position, and we've now set the stroke as well. So if you see the screen again, so home position is set, and we've set now our what they refer to as the start press or the fixed end position. So your start press position is that. Now I'm going to show you exactly how to adjust the speed, and hopefully it's just as simple. All right, guys, so all of the settings that were done on the onboard HMI. So just to explain what those half bright LEDs refer to. So you can set either the speed, the force, with regards to a percentage from 10% in stages of 10% all the way up to 100. So you would go 10, 20. So half lit LED is 10%, full lit LED is 20%. So that's how you can adjust that. So now let me just give you the last video just to show you exactly how the start press works. But before we do that, let me actually explain how it works. So once the signal is received to the Simplified Motion Series, the axis will move forward until it reaches the start press position. So it will move forward until it gets there, and once it reaches that position, it changes its control and goes into a force mode. It will then move forward at a slow speed until it reaches the force set point. Once it reaches the force set point, you'll get a corresponding output on the same outputs as you saw earlier in the presentation, and therefore you can have your interlock. Once you've reached your force, you can of course then play it or move it backwards, and then you'll be back in the home position. But let's have a look at how that's done physically, because that's the only one that takes a button twice. All right, so guys, I've been wondering why it's so quiet, and apparently you've been muted. So, Kirsch, if you don't mind unmuting the crowd there, are there any questions so far from everybody out there?
Unmuted.
Has there been any questions in the chat so far?
Marcus, there's a question. Can you buy the motor separately?
All right, so the motor can only be bought separately as a spare part for an existing axis. So once you've purchased an axis, it comes with a motor and controller in one. If you want a spare motor, you need the configuration part number, and it will then, of course, give you that as an option. So with the mics unmuted, guys, just make sure that you mute yourself unless you're asking for a question, because I can hear some background noise coming through. So hopefully that answered that question with regards to the motor by itself. Any other questions, guys? Unmute, ask away. I promise I don't bite. Okay, so no questions thus far. So let's
Muted. Unmuted.
Hi, Marcus. Hello?
there we go. Sorry, I was muted there. Yes.
All right, great. Okay, so there is an application here as well?
All right, so the application, we're going to touch base on the sizing, so please keep record of that, and then when we do the sizing, I'll touch base on that one. Thanks so much, Cassandra. All right, so guys, you might have realized that there are two ways of controlling the Simplified Motion Series, one being it via digital, and of course, the IO-Link version. So let's have a look at the differences between the two. So on the basic functionality of the HMI, you can set, of course, the speed, of course, you can set the force, all in those segments of 10%, as well as setting the reference or end position. So whether you set your home position or the start press position. So all of that's done from the HMI. And then, of course, in the exact same, you get those in position feedback with regards to if you're extended or retracted. So IO-Link, why would you want to use IO-Link if you've got all this simple functionality using 4 wires? So of course, it's for remote setting of the parameters. Those of your speed, force, and end position, you cannot do that via PLC. So of course, that makes it a lot simpler. And for product changes, so if the customer is running product A in the morning and running product B in the afternoon, by means of adjusting the position and speed through the PLC, you can of course set that. You can also, of course, copy the parameters onto the PLC. And let's say you have a failure at 2 o'clock in the morning. The machine operator simply only has to put in the new axis, put it in, switch everything back on, and all the parameters are sent to the unit from the PLC. Therefore, no need for calling out technicians. It's all done already automatically. You also get advanced process parameters, and then with that, we look at completed cycles. So for instance, let's say a customer has a maintenance plan on a machine. After so many cycles, the machine has to go into maintenance, and from the maintenance, you can then, of course, keep your guarantees or warranties on the machine. We also can see the mileage that are put on the axis. And as you know, Festo works on about a 5 million meter guarantee on our axes or life cycle. So you can then measure the actual mileage that your axis has done. Things like temperature and of course advanced diagnosis all give you input as to the state of the machine. And today's era with Industry 4.0, we always want to know what our machine's doing, not just in production, but the health of our machine as well. So in the process of comparing, let's have a look at the specifications of these units. We mentioned that they are on the smaller scale, so it's not meant for your 1.7 ton type systems. It is designed for the smaller. So you'll see that even though we can do, for instance, on our tooth valves, let me get my laser over there, play with the laser. Luckily, I don't have any cats running after the screen now. So you'll see on our tooth belt units, you can go up to a 2 meter axis. And on the cylinder style, you can get up to about a 750 Newton feet force. So of course, it does equate to roughly about a 25 bore cylinder. So once again, guys, simple positioning, two position, small, where you need a lot more control on your pneumatic cylinders.
Marcus,
And that, with that being said, yes.
There's a question here.
Okay.
Can it only be set up by the onboard controller?
All right, so with the onboard controller is where you can set the parameters, or if you connect it via IO-Link, you can set up the parameters via IO-Link. You do not need any external software or laptops to set it up. So those are your two options. You can either set it up via IO-Link or via the onboard HMI. Okay, so you don't need external controllers.
Another question is, do you need a PLC to run the system?
All right, so the same as a pneumatic cylinder, where you can have push buttons or selector switches to do manual change. So let's say, for instance, a machine has a changeover, a change state from two products, and you can have a selector switch to have it running either extended or retracted. So you can do it with pure digital, but in today's day and age, I think every machine nowadays either has a PLC or some form of relay logic. So you don't need a PLC, you can use selector switches, but I would use a PLC, which of course Festo has a brilliant range of PLCs from entry level to motion controllers. Super. Any more there, Cassandra?
Nothing more.
Andrew.
I've got one question.
Okay, who's that?
Justice, Namap Trading, Namibia.
Yes, Justice.
We did a similar thing like this for that helicopter job. I'm just trying to confirm. You said you've got digital inputs now. What are the voltage requirements if you do a digital input on this thing? Is it set, or can you choose a 12 volt or 24 volt or different voltage options?
It is 24 volts. So yeah, it's the only voltage option is 24 volt.
Okay, thank you.
Super. Thanks, Justice. Welcome all the way from Namibia. Hope the weather is nice there in Namibia with you guys. All right, so to move along, I did say we'll have a look at the sizing. So with a sizing tool, it's an online tool, which I'm going to open now and show you exactly how it works. There's no high level of expertise required. If you follow the guide or just follow the sliders, we'll have a solution within a few seconds. So I'm just going to click on the link here, and hopefully that's going to open my web page. So I believe you can see my web page now. Please, Cassandra, give me a shout and let me know you can see the web. I believe so.
Yes, we can.
Hundreds. And while you're on there, there was an application that somebody mentioned there. What have you got any information on that?
Okay. Actually, I have two questions. Can I just ask one of them before we get to the application?
100%.
Okay. Do you have this in an ATEX version?
Unfortunately, this is not ATEX approved.
Okay. So the application is for a stacking application?
Okay, so before we do that, all right, so you can see on the page, you basically can select, of course, a stroke and a payload. You can select whether it's linear or rotary. If you select rotary, you'll immediately see that it will give you only rotary options. So you set a stacker, so we'll keep it as linear. And then a stacker would not necessarily be a belt drive like that. I would go for a cantilever style, which is, of course, just the cylinder where your cylinder stays stationary and you have a rod come out. Now you'll see with the cantilever style, we only have the guided unit at this point in time because the cylinder is only being released at the middle of May. So we'll be using this one. And then for a stacker, of course, we're not horizontal, we're vertical, and that's it. That's all you need to set for the stacker. So have you got a stroke length there, Cassandra?
Yes, it's 150 millimeters.
150, and then of course a payload or a mass that we're picking up.
5 kilograms.
5 kilos, nice and lightweight. All right, so with the 5 kilos, it has now given, the system is giving you two solutions. You'll see a KF, the size 45, and of course the size 60. So if we select the 45, it'll tell us that there's a minimum positioning of 0.9 seconds with a maximum force of 120 Newton. So, and that's it. All you need to do now is click the Buy Now button. It will give you a warning to say that the size and stroke may not be changed, which is fine. We're happy with the stroke. We've determined that. It will now open it on the online configurator. The only other thing that you have to now select is the type of communication or the bus protocol. So you've got two options. You've got an NPN with IO-Link or PNP with IO-Link. So we're going to go for PNP. That's our standard that we run on our PLCs just for today. And you'll see it will give you the option to add it to your basket. From here, you'll be able to download your technical data, documentation, and of course, your E-plan drawing. So you can, of course, then already download your 3D model and pull that into your application. So from there, all you need to do is add it to your basket. And I've already got my basket open. So it's added. Let's go to my basket. And we just say update. And done. My basket, it's already been put into my basket. Because I'm in presenter mode, it won't allow me to display all of those personalized information. So guys, that's the sizing in a nutshell. So let's go back to the presentation, and then we have a quick look at cost comparison, because at the end of the day, that is on a lot of people's tongue. So if we compare the existing mechanical or electrical axis that we have, we can, for instance, take a look at the exact same EGSC, which is the mechanical axis, combined with a stepper motor and stepper controller with, of course, the cables between that. So if we compare that at a list price of 41,000, so remember guys, this I've just done this on my own personal account. So of course this pricing is not accurate. It is complete list. So if you compare that to the EGSS, the Simplified Motion Series, I'm sure you'll notice around about a 40% price difference. So I believe bridging the gap, not just in terms of performance from the electrical axis, as well as finance or cost, is a big step. But I suppose a lot of you are asking, if you compare it to a pneumatic system, let's have a look. So if I compare it to a pneumatic system, the DGST, same cantilever style pneumatic cylinder with its valve. You remember I added a valve, the two proximity sensors with its cables to connect to the PLC, a flow control to be able to adjust the speed, and of course the pressure regulator. I get to about a list price of 22. So if you guys remember that list price about 24, there's about a 10% difference. But unfortunately, that 10% is now on the pneumatic saving. So for 10%, what do you get for the additional 10%? We now get consistency, we get repeatability, we get ease of maintenance. We also get diagnostics to give you guys advanced warning for preventative maintenance or predictive maintenance, what a pneumatic cylinder can't give. So I think for 10%, what's that, roughly 2,000 Rand, I get so many more benefits. So of course, there are things to look at other than just rands and cents. So
Question
guys,
here.
yes.
Can you adjust the position of the advance and retract on the SMS?
All right, so the one position you can set is the advanced position. So it's a bit difficult to explain, but let's say, for instance, you have a retracted position as the home. You can only set the end position. The retracted position will always be the retracted. It will always be as retracted as it can be. so you can only adjust the end position. If you invert it where the home position is the extended side, then you can set the retracted position as the end position, but you can only set one of the two positions, and you cannot set that on the fly. It has to be set and then run. So it's not for multiple positions, which is a good topic because that brings us to our next one. And with that one, Cassandra, if you can launch the poll for us with regards to, do you require flexibility of your pneumatic systems? So while that poll is launched, if there's any more questions, please feel free to unmute your mic and ask away.
Okay, so there's actually a few questions, right?
So let's do that in the Q&A at the end.
Okay.
If that's okay with everybody. If there's something pertinent that you'd like to answer now, unmute by all means. Other than that, I think we can do the questions in the chat in the Q&A section at the end.
Great.
All right, so as soon as the poll's done, we can close that and of course move on to our next slide.
We only have 35%, well, about 40% voted.
Come guys, ladies, vote quickly, get that done.
Marcus, maybe while we're voting, can I just ask a quick question?
100%, who am I speaking to?
Again, Justice.
Oh, how's it, Justice?
Force holding at end
Yes.
of stroke positions.
Yes.
Is it advised? If you say maybe you go half stroke, can you hold that whatever force, 10 kilogram of force at that position? Does it have like a break or a holding position where you can hold the force in these units?
Very, very good question.
Even at full stroke.
Yes. All right, so what will happen is it will maintain the position because of the encoder. So if you move to, let's say, half stroke and the load changes, it will increase its own current to maintain the position. There isn't a brake option just yet. I know from the product manager it is in version 2, but at this point in time it will maintain the force, and that is the control that you get from a closed loop system. So there's absolutely no problem in having it maintain that force.
Okay, is it advised? Obviously, so you say the encoder will give feedback to the motor will increase current to hold that force in that position, so the motor will be under load. Is it advised?
It's fine, you can run it like that. It does depend on each application. You will get things like motor temperature increasing, but it's designed to do that. So it's part of the design feature. If it has to hold it for 2-3 days, I'd rather than say opt for a brake unit, but because the brake units aren't available just yet, there's no problem. The servo technology or the closed loop technology is designed to do exactly that. It's designed to maintain the position. All right, so Cassandra, if you can close that poll, Salon.
Right, poll closing.
Brilliant. All right, so did that answer your question there, Justice?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for the interaction. All right, so guys, do you require more force? Do you require more stroke, speed, connectivity, or perhaps multiple positions? Is the Simplified Motion Series just not enough for you? Well, if you've answered yes to any one of those, remember that from a Festo perspective, we have a full range of servo drives. Of course, connecting into any third-party PLC. So if you've got a Siemens, a Beckhoff, or Allen Bradley, Rockwell, any of those, our drives, of course, integrate. So from there, we've got our advanced servo drives. Let me have my laser on, which is the centralized versions. We have our extra low voltage servo controller, which is also known as a stepper controller, a full range of servo motors and stepper motors. So remember, if you need more than just the 2 positions that Simplified Motion Series gives, we have a full product range. So ladies and gents, that's me in terms of the Simplified Motion Series. I hope that was of interest to you guys and you have ideas or applications that you'd like to have a look at. So guys, from my side, hashtag stay safe, stay home. Thank you for everything. And this is now the Q&A section. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to unmute your mic and let's chat and see what we can do for you guys.
I have a question here from Hans.
Yes.
Can the HMI be locked for IO link applications.
That's correct. As soon as you activate the IO link, you can then have the option to lock out the HMI so that nobody can adjust it. Quite correct. Very nice question. Thank you, Hans.
I mean, Luciano's asking here, can the SMS be used with guides?
So with the units, so if you needed a guided unit, you can, for instance, look at the EPCC. Because it's standard Festa components, if a standard guide system attaches to it, you can operate it with a guiding system. So because the Axis is an additional product portfolio into the Festa portfolio, it makes use of our standard Axis. So all of its standard accessories will work with these units. So yes, if for instance you have the cylinder style and it can take a guide unit, you can operate it with a guide unit, yes.
Hi Marcus, it's Noel, yeah?
Yes, Noel.
Listen, just a quick question in terms of stroke lengths. What's the maximum stroke length that these cylinders can offer?
So if we go back to the stroke, let me get there quickly. No problem. There we go. Go back. So over there, so you'll see on the cylinder style, you get up to about a 500 millimeter stroke. On the belt drives, up to 2 meters, and of course on the spindle units, up to about 800 millimeters. So you do get different versions or different stroke lengths and sizes on all of these units.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure. At the end of the presentation, we will be, or after the presentation, the webinar, we will send out a survey. And on the survey, there is a question if you'd like more information or one of our systems or sales engineers to come and visit you or send you information with regards to the Simplified Motion Series. Purely tick that, yes. And of course, our application and systems engineers will be more than welcome, more than willing to assist you guys.
Okay, there's actually a few questions here, right? Firstly, I just want to make a comment. Philip, you can try and unmute your mic. I've tried to unmute you, but you're self-muted. Okay, now you've unmuted.
Yes, I'm unmuted now, sorry. Marcus, can you please mail us this presentation?
100%. So what you need to do to get the presentation is fill in the questionnaire at the end, and of course that will then tick that you want the presentation or more information. It will then automatically be sent through to you via your sales engineer.
All right. Thanks, Marcus.
Pleasure. Anybody else? Unmute your mic. We've got 5 minutes left.
Hi, Marcus. Luciano here.
Yes.
Can I ask a quick? We have an application that what we call an autogate, which we are using a pneumatic piston. Could I possibly set that whole configuration to one of you guys, and then you make a recommendation for a new electrical system for it?
100%. Who's your sales or application engineer that takes care of you at the moment?
I am not sure.
All right. So what you can do is reply. Well, when you get the questionnaire, just reply there with the information that you'd like to see us, and then of course somebody will make contact. All of the responses will come to me, and then from there I'll distribute to your sales engineers. And if you don't have one specified to you, I'll arrange it through one of the application engineers that are available nationally.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Marcus.
It's a pleasure. Any more questions, guys? Unmute while I have a sip of coffee. Been dying for this.
Hello, Marcus. Andre, how you doing?
Good, thanks. Yourself, Andre?
Good, thanks. Quick one on food application or food and beverage industry. Your cover strips, your IP ratings, and so forth for these different ranges. Is that still in how can I say, to come, or is there a range available like for your contact surfaces, washdown applications, stuff like it?
All right, so for that, on the IP rating of these units, it's only IP40, so it's not suitable for washdown areas, and it's also not designed for food clean areas or in contact areas. We do have a range that is suitable for that, so do make contact with one of the sales engineers, and he'll take you through the clean room components, which of course, as you know, with the form and the shape and the, of course, catchment areas, bolts, etc., all come into play. So these units aren't designed for clean room. It is designed for smaller general applications. The cover strip is there for stopping ingress of larger components into the bout drives to avoid damage, as well as going externally. So you can pressurize or put a vacuum on the units to ensure some form of clean, or shall I say, to stop cross-contamination, but not clean room as such.
Thank you, Marcus.
Pleasure, Andre. All right, guys, any more questions? We've got 2 more minutes, and then I'll be saying thank you once again. All right, guys, no more questions. Then from my side, I'd like to not only
sorry,
thank...
Marcus.
Oh, yeah.
There's
No
actually
problem. Yes.
a question here from Robbie, and he says, how does the SMS unit handle shock loads?
So with regards to the shock load, it depends if you're a belt drive or a ball screw. So firstly, your mechanical impact. So the motor would not, of course, take some of that loading. It will go in the negative direction, then of course move back in the forward direction. So the motor will reduce mechanical wear and tear on the axis itself, on the belt. However, you need to look at the amount of shock versus the maximum force rating of the unit, but it can handle the shock loading of that. Exactly like a pneumatic cylinder, where the external force is greater than the internal force, it will retract a bit and then of course move back out once the load has been absorbed.
Okay, thank you, Marcus. If I can just add in, we'd just like to conclude by asking a very quick question on the poll, just from the marketing side, just to gauge how successful the webinar was and if our attendees would attend again. So I'm going to launch that very quickly just before we close.
99%. I forgot to launch that poll. All right, so guys, if you can just answer that, would you like to attend another webinar from Festo? Promise it won't be this face. Yes.
Sorry, Luciano, the site I can't seem to access the quick poll. It doesn't allow us to select or anything like that.
Same over here.
Interesting. Marketing?
Okay.
What we notice is that it does take a while to enable. So sometimes it takes a minute before you can click through.
We've been waiting quite a few minutes. It just doesn't select it at all.
No. Okay, not a problem. We have also included a similar question in the survey that will be sent. So if you could please respond there, that would be great.
Yeah, if you guys can maybe, sorry, if because we've tried to select a couple of times and didn't get any joy. So if you can maybe send like a quick survey to us on email, which we can probably open a link and then just select our answers again and send it through.
100%
thank
we'll
you.
do that, Joe.
Thank you.
Hi, all.
All right, so yeah, as we said in the beginning, this is the first time we're using the go-to webinar, so we are still finding the little bugs, but thank you very much for the feedback. Guys, from my side, thank you for attending, but most important, I want to say thanks to the people that you don't necessarily see in the background, the marketing department, the team behind it. Thank you so much for setting everything in place. Guys, I hope it was interesting and we've planted a seed. So from my side, thank you very much for attending. Stay safe, and if you need anything, you're more than welcome to send us an email. Thank you so much, guys and ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
See you guys.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Stephen from Zimbabwe.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Stephen.
This is Enoch. Thank you.
Guys, feedback on that call from when my application was full screen. I couldn't select, but when I closed it, that it when it's not full screen, I could select the poll. I don't know if that can maybe help you guys.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's
Thank
very
you so
good.
much for that feedback.
All right, so I'll be logging off. Marketing, thank you so much. I'll be in touch with you guys after this. Look forward to the feedback. Thanks from my side, ladies. Appreciate everything you've done, eh?
Thank you, Marcus.